Your screen now. Okay. Everyone, welcome. Thank you so much for being here today. My name is Tiffany Garcia, and I am the Associate Director for Coaching and Programming here at Teachers College in the TC Next office. Very, very excited to be here with you all today. So today we're going to talk a little bit about interviewing, the ins and outs, what the common pitfalls are. So we'll be a little bit interactive. Bear with me as we manage some technology. We're going to be interacting a little bit. So I just ask that you stay engaged, stay with me. If you have questions, we will set time at the end to go over those questions. Okay. All righty. So as I shared before, some of our goals for today. So today we are going to talk a little bit about how to adequately prepare for the interview, the ins and outs before, during, and after. We're also going to talk about crafting your personal story. What does that look like? What does that sound like? And what does that feel like for yourself and the people that you are speaking to? We're also going to talk about how to convey powerful stories that demonstrate your skills and fit for a position, right? It's really important, not just what we're saying, but how we're saying it. There's a real science to interviewing so that people feel the impact the way you want them to. So we're also going to talk about that. And lastly, we're going to talk about concluding the interview, following up, and just the basics in the ins and outs of that. Okay. All right. So to get us started, I want us to think about the interview reframe. Apologies. So when we think about interviewing, if you could in the chat, put a word that comes to mind. I'll wait. Really quick, nothing, you don't have to put a whole sentence, but simple. Okay, I'm seeing some chats come through. Suits, assessment, screening, land, investigate. Okay, yeah, investigate, right? Compatibility, absolutely. Great examples here. Wonderful. Okay, these are some good ones. All right, so kind of thinking about that, right? So as we talk through this today, what's going to be really important to think about is reframing, right? We often associate interviews as stressful and as an obligation rather than opportunity to learn and share. Right. So as we talk about today, the interview process, I want you to kind of think about this being as a two-way conversation, right? You're also interviewing them. Do you want to work for them? Do you enjoy how they're saying, how they're talking about their work, right? And so it's really important to kind of think about that as we go through this. One of the most important things is really reframe, right? We get anxious, we get nervous, we can kind of forget, in a way who we are. So it's really, really important to think about really reframing and understanding that this is a two-way street, right? Pay attention to what they are saying as well and how they are saying it, right? How are they communicating? What is their body language, eye contact, posture, their tone? These are all things that you want to pay attention to, right? If this is an in-person interview, you also want to pay attention to the surroundings. How is the office situated, right? Who's in there? Is it a busy office? Is it empty, right? And so thinking about the interview as a holistic journey and not just a process is really, really important. Okay. So we're going to talk in three parts today, just interview preparation, during, and after, okay? So when we talk about interview preparation, there's a few items that we want to go over. First and foremost, these first two rather, are going to be, or the first one is going to be researching the role in this specific field. Okay. So it's really, really important to understand your field, your industry, right? We can have counselors in the school setting, right? For example, we can have counselors in a more corporate setting if they're working for a private organization, if they are a private therapist and right, and having your own practice. So it's really important to understand first and foremost the role and your industry and specific field that you're going to be in. Okay, really important to understand the niche needs of that specific area. Okay. The second thing is really, really going to be important to research the organization that you are looking to be a part of. Okay. Um, so, kind of thinking about leveraging social media, LinkedIn, Instagram, the organization's website. What projects, initiatives, affinity groups are they focusing on, right? That's really, really important. There's passive and active ways to engage. And one of the most important things to do is passively engaging with their content before you are in that interview space, right? So you should really be investing your time in researching the organization and what it is that they're doing that specifically connects with you and your philosophy. Okay. Second favorite thing to do when you're researching the organization is researching who are you going to be interviewing with, right? See if you have anything in common academically or professionally. One of my favorite things to do and recommend when I work with students is ask them, well, who are you meeting with? Have you looked them up on LinkedIn yet? And some students say, oh, I think that's a little weird. It's not. It's actually you doing your due diligence. You want to make sure that you are researching who you're interviewing with, what people you're meeting, because it's really, really, you're not talking to a piece of paper, right? You're talking to a person. So when you do that research, it really helps you to understand their background. What can you learn about them if you can find out some fun facts about them, right? And see where do you draw those connections. The more you do that, the more natural your conversation is going to be in the interview. And that's really what you want to ease those nerves. Next, researching yourself. This sounds silly, but it's really, really important. I cannot tell you how important it is and how many times people will say to me, well, I got into the interview and I just blanked. It's like I couldn't even talk about myself, right? And it's really, really important to, before your interview, as you're doing your research about the organization, the people, and the role itself, to think about how does it come back to you and your interests, your values. Really, really important. So take the time as you prepare for your interview, go through your resume, go through your cover letter, any document that you submitted, right? And think about what are my values? What are my strengths? And what are my non-negotiables, right? That's really important going into an interview. What do I need from this position that I cannot compromise on? Doing that actually helps you have a more targeted approach to how you answer those questions that they're going to ask you. Okay. And if we go back to the first bullet point there, when we talk about reviewing the job description, it's really important to think about what is it in the job description that they are asking for, right? So I want you to really go bullet point by bullet point and look for the skill rather than just reading what they're asking. A really simple thing to do is look for the skill, right? What skill are they asking for in this bullet point here? And for each skill that you list, I want you to think about, do I have an example for this skill that they are asking for, right? This could be academically, professionally, in any capacity that you have. You want to think about if you have an example, because rather than trying to predict the questions they're going to ask you, you're actually going to be able to do that by thinking about the skills that they have in the job description, because the questions they ask you are going to be based off of the needs that are in the job description. So whenever students come to me and ask me, well, I'm trying to predict what questions they're going to ask me, we really want to look at that job description, because that's going to be a key indicator of the types of questions that they're going to ask. And if their job description is very bare and there's not a lot there, that's when we go to the organization website and we start to look at their social media, because then we can get a hold of what their theme is and we can start to guess questions there. Okay. All right. I also put here mock interviewing. Very, very important part of preparation. Um, Mock interviews are really important because during the interview, that should not be the first time that you are hearing a question, right? Or talking about yourself or thinking about specific experiences. Mock interviews are really important to help you not only get into the mindset, but also to help you get into the industry and role set, right? And think about, where am I pausing? Where am I going blank? Where am I getting nervous, right? And that preparation is really key so that when you get into that interview, you are feeling like you are the expert on yourself. And so really mock interviews are very, very important. Okay, so that's a little bit about preparation. Now, during the interview, this is really, really, really important. So during the interview, you're going to be answering questions. And I want you to keep in mind to have, whether this is in person, right, during the interview, be firm, right? Have your firm handshake, create eye contact, and minimize hand gestures. It's really, really important. I struggle with that at times, right? To minimize hand gestures, as you can see at times, because you want to really draw the attention to what you're saying. And you want them to be looking at you, not the gestures that you're making. This can be very distracting. If I talk like this a lot, you're looking at my hands. You're not really paying attention to what I'm saying. So it's really important to kind of keep those gestures. Try to keep them not covering your face, right? Keep them below, your chest area so that you're not really distracting from what you're saying. Okay. Always have additional copies of your resume and list of references. Whether you're in a virtual or in-person space, you really, really want to make sure that you do have additional copies of your documents with you. Really can't tell you how many times people, may forget. This is also, if you're interviewing on a committee, some people may not have had your resume. They may have been emailed it. And if they ask, you kind of always want to be prepared. It really reflects great on your candidacy, something that people remember. So just being always prepared, having additional references, having an additional copy of your resume, very, very important. Okay. And so as we get started, we're going to kind of talk now a little bit less logistics and more of the types of questions that you may be asked, and really a formula to answer them. Okay. So as we get started in the chat, if you would like, please share, what do you think the most difficult interview questions are? And I hope we can get to each of them. Okay, we've got a few here. Okay. All right, let's see. Okay. Strengths and weaknesses. Tell me about yourself. Yeah. Okay, what do you want to learn from this experience? Great. Okay, so great example. Okay, how has your lack of experience hurt your career progress? Okay, very specific. We'll go over that, how to address any gaps. Okay, what are the challenging parts of your experiences? Yep, great questions. Yep, really good. Awesome. So thank you. We do have a few of those examples, and for those specific ones, I will take time to answer those. Wonderful. Okay. So as you guessed it, many of you guessed it, right? First question we're going to talk about is the tell me about yourself question, right? So usually in an interview, this might sound like, hello, thank you so much for being with us today. Before we get started, if you could kind of just tell us a little bit about yourself, we saw this, right? So it may not sound right like, tell me about yourself right away. So that's really important to think about, is listen out for the types of questions that they are going to ask. They may not always sound the same. Okay. So why this question? This is, so as some of you guessed, this is the most hardest interview question because it can just go so many different directions, right? And so this first question, number one, it sets the tone for the interview. This is the first time that they are hearing you speak formally, right? And second, they want to know, can you succinctly describe yourself, your experiences, right? They are looking at you now, talking about your experiences. And that says a lot because we think it should be easy to talk about ourselves, but there's a few different traps that we can get caught in, right? And lastly, you also want to think about, someone may not have reviewed your documents in the resume, right? So it's really important to capture everything that you want this person or these people on your committee to know. Very, very important. So we think about your do's. Okay, for this question, first, you want to make sure that you're keeping it brief. Okay, you do not want to go over 60 seconds and some change is what I like to say. You don't want to spend too much time on this question, but you want to give them enough so that they can feel that they know a little bit about you. Because remember, this interview is only getting started, right? And so a lot of people sometimes will say, well, I want to make sure that they know this. I need to make sure that this gets there, right? That they know this, right? And really, this is where you want to pace yourself, okay? This is introductory. You want to focus it on the position in the company, right? And so you kind of want to think about it on, this is my formula to think about it: past, present, and future. What inspired you, right, in the past to pursue this career? What are you currently doing to facilitate that interest, right? And then what are your future goals, and how does this position tie into that? Okay. So when you answer the tell me about yourself, it is past, present, future. So I want you to think PPF, past, present, future. That is the formula that you want to answer in, right? Because that gets you to talk about the company, the position, but it also gets you to talk a little bit about your experience and skills, okay? A few other tips on this. This is where you want to really make sure that you're making eye contact, right? That you're not looking away. It's really, really important. And also that you're practicing authenticity, right? So as we'll talk through in other interview questions, it's really important to think about being authentic, right? Tell me about yourself. When I see people sometimes in a virtual interview, I will see them reading left to right. Hi, my name is Tiffany Garcia. I'm the associate director, right? And I'll see them read from left to right. Their head will move, their eyes will move, and they're reading off of a script, right? So you really want to practice that authenticity when you are talking about yourself. Bullet points are much better if you are in a virtual interview than having whole paragraphs, because you just kind of want the reminder of what you're going to say, but trust yourself of how you're going to say it. Okay. That will also help you avoid mind fog. You may freeze up. You may miss a sentence as you're reading a paragraph. And you really want to be present, right? Because the interviewer is giving you their presence. So you want to kind of make sure that you're returning that. Okay. So kind of what we talked about here, a few don'ts. Don't share your entire life history, right? It's okay. We're going to get to the important pieces. And that's okay. You want to pace yourself. Okay. Two, don't get too personal, right? So this is really where your mock interviews are going to come in handy, of what types of examples and stories are you going to share that are really going to reflect your brand, is really, really important. We don't want to get too personal. We want to make the environment very neutral and very comfortable. And then don't forget the position of the company. So always kind of at the end, make sure that you're coming back to that. Okay. So that is a little bit of tips for the tell me about yourself question. So we are going to actually now go into practice mode. as I said, we're going to have a little bit of participation. Um, so here you see, I kind of put a little template together of us, but I want you to think about, how do you want to answer this question given these tips? Okay. So as you see here in the example, we talk a little bit about, hi, my name is, right? I'm currently in the mental health counseling or school counseling program at Teachers College, Columbia University. I'm currently a counseling intern at Mount Sinai. In my role, I support mental health clinicians collect information through client interviews, observations, or tests, right? So really, I'm giving you a little bit here. And then I'm talking about now in this sentence here, I'm really interested in counseling in XYZ population. I'm getting a little bit more specific, as you can see here. And then I want to talk about the organization again. I think XYZ serves a large, diverse population that will allow me to develop my understanding of the key issues facing this community. I've also done some office work and am ready to apply my experience to your position. So you kind of think about past, present, future, what is relevant, right? And so as we kind of go into this practice right now, we are going to break out into groups. I'm going to open the breakout rooms, and you're going to have about a minute to practice with your partner and talking about yourself. Okay. I'm going to give you about 30 seconds to kind of get acclimated. I see some people are dropping out. Don't worry, you do not need to drop off of the call. This is going to be great time for you to practice. So I'm going to open all the rooms. And if you have any questions, please, please let me know. But we are going to step away for about 3 minutes, okay? All right, welcome back. Okay. I see some of us are unmuted, have our cameras on. So tell me, how did that practice session go? You can feel free to use the chat or unmute yourself.
I had a question.
Yes, absolutely.
And this is very specific to me and it may not apply to the whole group, but because I'm a mid-career switcher, I have, when I introduced myself, I almost felt like I was overqualified. I don't mean it that way, but like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm not, the example here is I've also done some office work. I'm ready to apply my experience. Is very, very catered to a much younger applicant.
Yeah.
How would you do this for a slightly more senior, experienced applicant, but new in this sector?
Yeah, great question. Great question. Yes. So this is just an example, just a sample. So when we think about sort of catering this, and so I apologize, you did not have to repeat this script. This is you practicing your own. This was just a template. So when we think about answering that, when you have, right, years of experience and you're kind of transitioning, you kind of want to think about what, starting with the past, you can fully recognize that you are jumping into a new industry, a new space, a new field. And you can say, I've had this many years of experience. What really interested me in transitioning in this career pivot was XYZ. I learned a lot about XYZ and my over 15 years of experience in this industry, and I really believe it translates well. So you can kind of think about it in the past and then sort of talk about how is that transferable and what you are considering. So it would still be the same formula, but really you adding, you wouldn't be keeping, so to speak, your past experience from them. You'd be sharing that more upfront.
Okay. Thank you.
Of course.
I have to log out. My computer's hung, but I think you can hear me, but I can't see anyone.
Oh, no worries. No worries.
Okay.
If you can, yes, you can log back out and log back in. Okay. Okay, so someone said that it went well, but they use their hands too much when they talk.
That was me, and I do use my hands too much, you see?
Yeah. And so that's great. That's great to know, right? It's great to do that when you're practicing so that you're aware of it. Something I try to do in an interview, if I know I'm a little fidgety, if I had a little too much sugar, right? Or when I talk to students is have a pen and paper nearby. It is good to busy yourself if you feel that you need that, but it's also good to take notes in your interview. You can have your notebook out and you can sort of have your pen in hand and write things down. And then sometimes you can make a gesture. As you see here, I'm making a gesture with my pen. That's okay. But a lot of this can be really distracting.
Thank you. That's good advice.
Of course. Awesome. Okay. Wonderful, wonderful. All right. So kind of moving on to our next question here. Some of you guessed it, is strengths and weaknesses. This question, and I want to be, as I said with the tell me about yourself question, I want to be aware also that this question can be presented in a multitude of ways. And so we want to be aware to listen out for the key indicators when asking this question, right? This can come in a behavioral question form. Can you tell me about a time you really had to work on a skill? It may not just be a tell me about a time or tell me about your strengths and weaknesses, right? So just being mindful of listening out for that. Okay. So first and foremost, this question, you want to think about what we call USPs, your unique selling points. Your unique selling points are items that you find unique to yourself. This could be where you studied, that your area of study, your industry of expertise. If you are a career pivoter, and I had a student who had an engineering background and going into mental health counseling. And so they said, I'm really nervous about this. And I was like, wow, that's amazing. I want to hear your story, right? So that's a unique selling point. What got you into this, right? And so you want to think about what is unique about my candidacy first and foremost to kind of get you in the space to answer this question. The second thing you want to think about is completing a strengths assessment. For some people, that is, the strengths and weakness question can be really ambiguous. And really, sometimes some people are like, I just want to give a direct answer. I want to be clear and concise. So you can always come to the TC Next office. We do offer the Gallup Strengths Assessment so that you can work on your strengths questions as well. And we offer a multitude of values and other strengths-based assessments as well. So complete a strengths assessment. That's a really great way to kind of get yourself back into your own shoes, so to speak. Most importantly, you want to make sure that when you are sharing weaknesses, people often associate this question and they go straight to the weaknesses part, right? And we want to make sure that when we talk about our weakness section, that we're not choosing anything that is performance critical. What do I mean when I say that? So if the role, right, is a main 60% of the role, right, is let's say you're going into counseling in group dynamics and you say public speaking is a fear, right? You want to be mindful of how you're framing it. Okay, because performance critical is really, really important to the role. We don't want to say a weakness that is a main part of the role. Okay. Okay. Give examples of how you are building your strengths. This one is really, really important. Okay. So when we talk about strengths, people often do really, really well in this question. They can really identify their strengths, right? You want to talk about a story. Sometimes people can forget that that person does not know you, right? And so they need an example of how you're adaptable. They need an example about how you are a team player, right? So make sure that you're giving these examples when you're talking about your strengths in any setting. You want to have a story that shows how you utilize that specific strength. And then also in talking about your weaknesses, I kind of put weaknesses there, but I always advise or coach students on reframing this question to an area of growth, an area of development. So as you're answering this question, think about an area of development for me over the last year, I think has been X, right? And you want to take them through the story of the weakness section. The strengths is kind of like the icing on top. The weakness is the real meat of the question. They want to see how well are you able to be self-aware. Okay. And so first and foremost, we want to reframe that to an area of growth or an area of development. You also want to talk about where did that come from? Did this come from a conversation with a supervisor? Did this come from someone in passing? So you really, really want to share where did that idea come from, and then, or the weakness rather, and you want to talk about what have you been doing since receiving that feedback, right? So you can say, an area of growth for me has really been time management, being aware. I gained a whole new set of responsibilities. So over the last year, here's what I've implemented so that I can effectively manage my time. You always want to say what you're doing and how you've responded to it, right? And that's really what they want to hear is the story about what you're doing to kind of support an area of growth for yourself. Okay. All righty. Okay. Yes, apologies. Area of growth was right there. All right. So anybody have questions before we move on to the next set of questions? Okay. All righty. Okay. So the next set of questions is behavioral questions. Okay. So behavioral questions can be really, really tricky. Behavioral questions, why do they ask these questions, right? So these are really to assess your skill and your response, right? And so just by a show of hands, if you can use the hand reaction, how many of you have heard of the STAR method for behavioral questions? Okay. Okay. All right. We've got some people who have not. Okay. So people who have. All righty. Okay. So when we think about behavioral questions, we want you to think about STAR. So behavioral questions, as I said before, these are really the meat of the interview, where you are going to be asked about examples of a skill, examples of a time that you had to manage something, right? These are really the meat. So first we begin with situation. So situation is often the part where people can spend a lot of time on. So with behavioral questions and situation, you want to get straight to the point. This should not be where you spend your 60 seconds, or rather 30 seconds or more on this, right? You want to get straight to the point. Talk about what the situation was that you dealt with very, very clearly. And then you want to get to the task. What were you tasked to do? The task and action are really the most important and effective parts of answering a behavioral question, right? So you want to talk about task. What were you tasked to do by your supervisor? Who did you work with? And what did you do in action, right? So did you have to work on a group assignment? Did you have to allocate? Did you have to make calls to different organizations, right? So you want to think about task and action is really the meat of where you want to answer this question. And then you want to think about the results. So when I think about results, this can be quantitative, this can be qualitative, right? As a result, we saw a 50% increase in engagement with our clients, or we saw a 10% increase in survey responses of our clients saying that they were feeling, improved in this competency, right? So you want to have that result. But then you also want to tie it back when you answer this question to the role, right? And so that is the really, really fun part about STAR method. You want to tie it back to the role. You've given this great example, and now you want to tie it back to. And in this position, I think that time management is a key skill. Or in this position, I think that interpersonal skills are extremely necessary when you are dealing with those in crisis, right? So you want to type it back to the position. And lastly, remember that examples are really going to come from everywhere. You want to rely on any group projects. You want to rely on your practicum experiences if you've had them in the past, any on-campus, off-campus work, even examples in your past career if you're a career pivoter. It's really, really key. Okay. So we are going to go into practice mode just one more time. So please just stay with me. I promise, not that bad. So I want you to pick apart one of these questions here. Okay, so we've got about 4 different questions. You and your partner, you can choose which question you want to give an example of using the STAR method. So thinking about first question here, tell me about a time you had to lead a project. How do you manage multiple projects at once? How did you learn from a mistake you made? Or describe a time when you had to learn something new. In what ways did you approach the learning process? Okay, so these are a few examples. I will make sure I will put these in the chat so that you still have them if you'd like, or you can take a screenshot of them and you can practice them in the breakout rooms. Okay. Once more. Right, welcome back. Right. Welcome back. Welcome back, everyone. Okay. Anyone want to share anything interesting that happened in their breakout room talking about the behavioral questions? You can use the chat, you can unmute yourself. Okay. Okay. So shifting the question a little bit, great customization. So talking a little bit about more about roles instead of projects. Okay. Great. Okay. All right. So as we said, with behavioral questions, right, I want to make sure that these questions, remember what I said in the beginning, right? When you look at the job description and the skills and you break them down by bullet point, that's how you can really predict the types of behavioral questions you're going to get asked, because it's going to be based off of the competencies that they're looking for in the job description, right? So the job description is your friend from the start of customizing your resume and cover letter all the way to the end when you're interviewing. And also for salary negotiation, it is also your friend. Okay, so moving on with the time we have, I want to think about common pitfalls for interviewing, okay? So going on a tangent, this is our best friend here sometimes, right? Show of hands, how many of you, or in the chat, how many of you have gone on tangents in an interview? I hope I'm not alone. How many of you it's happened to? Okay, I see some. Yeah, right. This is common, right? No one's perfect. I'm a career coach, right? It can happen to any of us, right? But what's really important is, how do we come back from this, right? So when you go off on a tangent, what have I been saying? Find the reframe. The most important thing to do here is take a pause and recognize that you're going on a tangent in an interview. So that might sound like, you know what, I'd like to take a moment. I think I got away from the question. Could you repeat the question again? Right? Or you could say, I recognize I might be getting away from the point. Right? And so you can always give yourself a little bit of time, right? This is really important. And this actually shows self-awareness. People will say, oh, what if that might be a little risky. It's not as risky as you continuing to answer a question that was not ever or originally asked, right? And so you show the interviewer there that you're being self-aware and that you caught yourself and recognized that you didn't anticipate that, right? And so that's really, really important. Okay. Second is not giving enough examples during an interview. It's really important when we think about your specific field, your specific industry, is really talking about customization and giving examples that show through the skills, right? And so it's really, really important that you show project management skills, right? Interpersonal collaboration, conflict resolution, active listening. These are all skills that you want to give examples to when you talk about them in the interview. Okay. Third is not circling back to the job. You really, really want to always circle back to the position that you are applying to and circle it really. When you think of how you answer any question, from the tell me about yourself to the behavioral questions, you always want to circle it back to that position, right? And here's how I think project management is key as a counselor. I think managing a caseload is really, really important. Here's some of my project management skills that I think are really going to set me up for success in this school counseling position, right? Always circle it back. Think about, tying a bow on a gift. And then lastly, body language. Body language is really important. So when, like we talked about hand gestures, but when you're in person, be aware, be mindful of your own body language. Are you closed off? Are you looking away? That one is my favorite. I will conducting a mock interview, and people will start answering questions and they'll be looking away. I'm so excited to be here today and interview with you guys. Like, this is really exciting. Nothing about that says you are excited if you're looking away, your tone, the intonation of your voice, right? So you really want to focus on body language and being present for the interview. It's really, really important. You can do mock interviews with Quincia. I'm going to put the link later in the chat. It's really, really important. I highly recommend everyone after this go and do a mock interview on Quincia. Okay. So kind of as we're closing up here, think about questions that you want to ask. This is really, really important. So you want to think about the role. What is the day-to-day view and perspective of the role from their side? You can ask them that question. Think about accomplishments for that position. Can you tell me a few successes that the team had? And then talk a little bit about expectations. What are your roles for the incumbent in the first 90 days? Given that given that you're working on this wonderful initiative and collaborating with a new nonprofit, what are the expectations? How is this going to impact my role, right? So you kind of want to first start with the role. Those are questions that you want to have prepared. And then you want to talk about the department, right? If it's in a larger organization or you're going to be on a smaller team, then you want to think about, how do I ask these questions for the department, right? This also gives people, if it's a panel of multiple people, it gives you an opportunity to ask everyone on the team a question, okay? So think about different initiatives, special projects. How does this department, how does this department work with this department, right? You can ask cross-functionally, how do they work on teams? Then you can start to ease in some professional development questions. That's really, really important. So, what does development look like for me? I'm very interested and very invested in working with this specific population. I'd like to know, what opportunities will I have to either continue my work in this area, right? So you really want to make sure that you're getting that professional development question across, and that it's not the first question, right? So a few other key things here: prepare at least 5 questions. You want to have questions, and you can have them on a notebook ready. People like to talk about themselves. They've heard you talk for about 30 minutes, 45 or an hour, right? This is their turn to talk about themselves. So you really want to think about the questions that you ask, because most of the time people will remember how they felt answering you. And you want that, right? That's key for your candidacy. Okay, so a few examples. What is the working culture like here? What are the immediate goals or priorities like we talked about, right? You can also do questions that build in the moment. So for example, you mentioned earlier that you have a professional development program. Can you tell me more about that, right? So don't be afraid to think of questions on the spot, okay? So really, really important. All right. So thinking about interview brand etiquette. All right. Um, so apologies here. Do's and don'ts, right? Do a mock interview. Very, very important. You want to make sure that you have everything prepared, every question, every behavior, whether it's your clothing, your attire, what you're saying, you want to be ready. You do not want to go into the interview the first time not prepared, right? Dress your best. So when we think about dressing for an interview, I always tell people to err on the side of, on your best day, you are in front of the leader of your organization. What do you want to be wearing? How do you want to feel? Okay. So really making sure that you have that attire that's going to make you feel your best. Okay. Arrive early. If this is a virtual interview, this is where we do our technology prep, right? So give yourself about 20 minutes. Yes, I'm saying 20 minutes before, check in. Does my Zoom work? Is my mic working? Is my background working? How's the lighting in my space? Very, very important. If this is an in-person interview, give yourself a little bit more time. I've had candidates show up an hour early for an interview, 30 minutes early, and they have time, right, to walk around the organization, walk around the institution, or sit in the lobby and people watch. That also gives you a little bit more of an understanding. Remember how we said it's a two-way interview. So that's really important. Do ask questions about the role. You should have at least 5 questions to ask regarding the position, and do send a thank you email. The thank you email, I try to tell people not to send it right away. Give yourself the 24 hours, because you do really want to have something rich and customized to say to each person that was in the interview. And you want to go home and kind of think about that. Okay. Some don'ts. Don't skip preparing. That's going to be your friend here. Okay. Really want to prepare. Do one mock interview with someone that you trust. You can do it on Quincia, and just practice. Get comfortable with yourself. You will not regret it. Show up in questionable attire. So when we say this, don't show up with pajamas. Don't show up with anything that is not in the professional space, right? So if you need pointers on what you want to wear, how do you like to wear, that's where we do the research. Look on the website, look on their social media. What does their office look like, right? Those can be really great. Don't show up late. Be on time. Be on time. If you know your train sometimes gets delayed, give yourself that extra 30 minutes. You always want to be on time no matter what. Okay. Don't ask your first question about pay. Compensation is important, but we want to make sure that we're not asking that as the first question. And of course, make sure that you are following up. Do not ever not follow up in a thank you email. Okay. I know we're getting to time here. So just be mindful. These are questions that you legally under Title VII, they cannot ask you any questions regarding your race, ethnicity, color, disability, compensation history, sexual orientation, gender or sex, age, marital status, and family status. These are questions that they cannot ask you during an interview. So if you do have that concern, if that does come up in any interview, you are not obligated to answer any of those questions. And you can flag that should you have any concerns, okay? So as we said, wrapping up here, when you're ending your interview, send a nice follow-up, okay? Take a moment to capture anything while it's fresh, okay? Have your notebook handy. It is not uncommon, and I'm actually always impressed when I see a candidate walk in with a notebook. That means they're paying attention. There's things they want to remember. Okay, so have your notebook handy. If there's notes you want to take, that will also help you with if you tend to fidget or make too many hand gestures, keeps your hands busy. Okay, personalize your thank you note or email 24 hours after your initial interview. Offer your thanks. You want to thank them for their time. Mention something specific that you learned from them. Okay, this is really why it's important, right, to write it down while it's fresh. You want to customize this. You don't want this to just say, thank you so much, really appreciate the interview. You want to customize it. Anything that you learned, anything that excited you, or anything or anyone that you connected with, if you connected on something specific. Okay. Offer up time or consideration if they require anything else. You always want to make yourself available. Ask them if they have any questions. Okay. And then check your email and phone and be ready for an offer. Okay. This is really, really important. We want to make sure that you're ready and aware. So during the time that you complete your final interview, be ready that week or those next 2 weeks. Answer your phone with your full name, Tiffany Garcia, right? Be prepared. This may come from a number you don't know. Some people like to say, let the call go to voicemail. This can give you time to prepare, to negotiate, or to be ready to accept an offer. So that's another strategy. Okay. And lastly, please visit us. So we offer drop-ins Monday through Friday from 1 to 3 p.m. And you can also schedule an appointment with the TC Next office on the Career Services portal. So should you have any questions, please feel free to visit us. We're in building 528, suite 157. We can get very specific with your interview, salary negotiation, mock-in, any sort of document review. So I am going to stop sharing my screen right now and just put in the link for Quincia on our website. So please make sure that you make a an account with Quincia so that you can practice your mock interviews. And this can be helpful, especially if you have a little stage fright interviewing, to interview with the computer before you interview with a person. So if you have questions, please let me know and I'll stay back. But thank you all for being with me today. And I wish you the very best on your interviews.